Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look at part 2 of assignment 3. And sticking with our political theme, we're going to do, and based on what we did in class last week, we're going to create a quiz or like a Facebook style quiz to measure, are you a Bernie or a Donald? I don't think most of you need much explanation for that, but we're going to create a user form with 4 questions and text boxes between 1 and 10, and based on the user's response to each question, we're going to compute a Donald difference and a Bernie difference for each question, add up the absolute value of each difference, and I'm going to have another variable that measures the percentage fit with each, and then we're going to show the results all on a user form. So let's go ahead and get started, and we'll go back into our Excel file that we began earlier, assignment 3, and I'm going to insert a user form, which by default will be named user form 2. May need a little bit more room for this one, so I'm going to resize it a little bit, and I'm going to right click. For some reason my properties aren't showing up. Not that. Okay, this is what I'm looking for, my properties. For the background color, in honor of St. Patrick's Day, I'm going to use kind of a lime green background. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do in my user form is add some labels, and I clicked on the user form and my toolbox popped up. So I'm going to click on the label, and I'm just going to give the enter a caption for a title. So I'm just going to call this, are you a Donald or a Bernie? Okay, so now I'm going to add a second label with some instructions for the questions. And for the caption, I'm going to type, please enter 1 to 10 for each item where 10 equals strongly agree. And now I'm going to enter yet another label for the first question. So the first question, the label is going to be, the U.S. should build a wall on the border with Mexico. And I'm also going to add a text box where the user can enter their response to that question. Okay, so now I'm going to select both the label. Well, first I'm going to rename the text box as wall box. And now I'm going to select both the label and the text box and copy and then paste. The reason I'm doing that is so the sizes of the boxes are consistent, and I'm going to line them up underneath. But I'm going to have a new question, so I'm going to select the label and I'm going to delete the caption and replace it with the U.S. federal minimum wage should be raised to $15 per hour. And I will rename the text box as wage box. So I will paste again. try my best to be consistent in the alignment, and I will change the label to the U.S. should have a socialized national healthcare system. And I will rename the box as Health Box. And then lastly, I'll paste one more time. Try to realign the question. I'm trying to put, like, you can see the little dots here, and I'm trying to put exactly one space between each of the text boxes to make them aligned. And I'll rename this caption the U.S. should have a federal law allowing transgender individuals to choose their bathroom. And I will call that trans box. Sorry if these are a little political in nature. I'm not really going to comment on my opinion on any of them. I'm just setting this up. So now I'm going to add a couple command buttons. One to submit the results and the other one to cancel. So I'm going to click on the command button down there. If you're using Excel 2010, it might look a little different, but if you hover over it, it tells you what each button is. So I'm going to click once here, and I'm going to create a button with a caption, submit results, or submit quiz. And I will copy that and paste it beside it. Again, the reason why I'm doing that is so it's the same size. And the second command button is going to read cancel. So now I'm going to work on the code. Eventually I'm going to add 2 more text boxes to show the results, but intermediate I'm going to work on the code for a little bit. So first I'm going to do the easy one, the cancel button. So I'm going to double click on cancel to get into the code. And whenever I've canceled, I use the command unload and the name of the user form. This one is named user form 2. I'm going to click back on user form 2, and now I'm going to work on the hard one, the submit. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a number of error checking if statements. So I want to make sure the value entered in the text boxes is between 1 and 10, or if it's not, I want to give a error message. So I'm going to type if val of, let me remind myself what my boxes are named: wall box, wage box, health box, and trans box. So if val of wall box is less than 1, or val of wall box is greater than 10, then I'm going to give them an error message. And we'll just do that in a message box. And I'm going to have a generic one for all of the entries. Please enter a value between 1 and 10 for all items. End if. So I'm going to do this 3 more times. So I'm going to copy and paste. changing the wall box to wage box. I made the message generic, so I don't have to change that. I paste it again, and I'm going to change it to health box. And lastly, trans box. Okay, so now I want to do a computation, and I'm going to add variable names for Donald diff and Bernie diff. So I'm going to dim Donald diff as double and dim Bernie diff as double. For initially, they're going to be integers because we're subtracting whole numbers from each other, but eventually I'm going to divide by the maximum difference to get a percentage, so I'm going to define them as double for the time being. Now I only want to compute this code if they have a valid value in there, and I'm going to create kind of an obnoxious if statement with 8 different entries to it. So I'm going to do if, kind of the opposite of what I did before. If wall box is greater than or equal to 1. This time I'm going to do and because I want it to meet all the conditions. And val of wall box is less than or equal to 10. And whoops. I'm going to do a, you may not have to do this on your screen, but I have my font size kind of big for the video. This little underscore is a continuation. So that continues a statement beyond one line. So I'm going to copy and paste that and change wall box to wage box. Paste again, change wall box to health box. And lastly, trans box. I don't need my and or my continuation at the end of the 4th line, but I do need a then. So if all 8 of these conditions are met, then I want to go ahead and start doing my computation. So I'm going to compute Donald diff, and I need to have a series of absolute value statements because we don't want variations to negative and positive differences to cancel each other out. So I'm going to do absolute value of, and I have to now come up with how Donald Trump would answer these questions. So the first question was we should build a wall, so that would be a 10. So I'm going to do 10 minus wall box plus the absolute value of all these other ones. I think he would enter a 1, or the transgender one, I'm actually going to give him a 3 because he declared in the primaries that he was supportive of transgender rights, but then for the bathroom issue in particular, he turned it back over to the state, so I don't think he actually agrees that there should be a federal law, but I'll give him a 3 on that. The other ones, I'm going to give him 1s, so he does not agree with raising the minimum wage to 15 or a socialized health care system. So I'm going to complete I'm going to do this across 2 lines. So 1 minus wage box plus, and I'm going to do a continuation there, absolute value of 1 minus health box plus absolute value, and here's where I'm going to enter the 3 minus trans box. So I have my Donald difference there. Now I'm going to copy and paste this and change Donald to Bernie. And I'm going to change the values. He would answer 1 to the wall, a 10 to the minimum wage, a 10 to the healthcare system, and also a 10 to the transgender. I'm guessing that's what he would answer. So now I'm going to enter some message boxes here to look at my results, to test it before I get too far with this. So I'm entering the Donald difference, a space, concatenate, and the Bernie difference. Eventually I'm going to put this in a text box at the bottom of the screen, but for now I'm going to end if, and I'm going to run my user form to test it. So I'm going to run this now. First of all, I'm going to test if I enter a Z, it does not crash, so that's good. Now let's pretend like I'm entering it as though I were a Bernie supporter, entering a 1, a 10, a 10, and a 10. And I should get a 0 for Bernie, and I should get a large number, 9, 9, 9, and 7. So I think 34 for Donald. So I get a 34 and a 0. So it's working the way I had hoped. So I'm going to go back into the code. And now I proved that my cancel button works. And I'm going to add one more line of code here. I'm going to divide the result. I'll put parentheses around it and divide by 36. Why 36? Because 36 is the maximum difference. If they were polar opposite for each question, they would get a difference of 9 for each item. So 36 is the maximum difference. So I'm dividing by 36 to get kind of a percent. So I'm going to run it again. And again, I will answer as though I'm Bernie. 1, 10, 10, and 10. And I should get a very small number for Donald. Actually, I've got 94% for Donald and 0 because it's the difference. So I'm going to compute 1 minus that to get the percentage. So let me try that one more time. Cancel. I'll just to make it simple, I'll add a line of code here. Donald diff is equal to 1 minus Donald diff. So he had a 94, so it's going to be something around 6. If I put the same responses in, Bernie diff is equal to 1 minus Bernie diff. So I will run it again, put those same answers in. 1, 10, 10, and 10. and I get a very small number like 0.005, and I get a 1. Okay, now I'm going to do something that might be confusing. I'm going to run it one more time just to see what happens if I put in 5s for everything. So I get 58% and 47%. Those are kind of big numbers. Now I'm going to go back into the user form. I'm going to cancel out, and I'm going to put in a label here that I'm just going to add a caption for results. And then I'm going to add 2 text boxes, one for Bernie and one for Donald. So I'm going to make it nice and wide here, and I'm going to call it Donald box. And I'll copy and paste it. And I will rename the second box Bernie box. Okay, so now I'm going to go back into my code. I'm going to add 2 new variables. This might be a little confusing. The reason I'm doing this is just to do some rounding. So Donald percent as long and Bernie percent as long. And now I don't need this message box anymore. But down here I'm going to type Donald percent is equal to Donald diff times 100. Bernie diff is equal to Bernie diff times 100. Donald box, I'm going to put a phrase. Your match with Donald Trump is, and I'm going to concatenate the Donald percent, and I'll also concatenate a percent sign. And I'll copy and paste that line of code. Change the Donald to Bernie. And change the name of the field to Bernie box. Notice this is all still inside the if, so this only gets executed if they put valid values in. Okay, so now I'm ready to run it and see, hopefully my results show up in the box below. I'll do the same entries. So this should be 100% with Bernie and like 6% with Donald. Oh, it says 0. Why does it say 0? I probably have an error somewhere in my Bernie code, so I'm going to cancel and go back to the code and see what I have wrong with Bernie.